Hey everyone, it is Morna Haist here, as you can see, and Susheela and I are just having some issues going live on Zoom. So we are going to try going live on our phones. So I'm on my phone and I'm just waiting for Susheela to join me so that I can invite her into this conversation. And okay, let's have a look. Hopefully, I'm going to add Susheela and Bryn. Okay, let's see if this works. Here she comes.
All right.
Yay! Woo! Okay.
We made it happen.
We made it happen.
Okay.
Welcome to my interview.
I probably should have started this, but that's all good. Welcome everyone to this week's Love Seat. And today we have the honor of having Morna Haist, our fearless leader, in today's Love Seat. Hi, Ellen.
I like the love sleet. Let's do the love sleet.
Sorry.
No, I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, we're gonna make fun of me here too. Fine.
Yeah, come on. We're going to make fun of each other, aren't we? Let's do it.
Yeah, this interview is gonna go downhill very quickly.
We knew it would.
Well, yeah. So I think what I'd really love to do is just dive into the questions and just through answering them, the community is going to get to know your whole bio. So I'm not doing a bio.
Okay. All right. Sweet.
Awesome. So let's so what is it that got you to begin Revolutionary Woman? I would love to hear your founding story and really what are the experiences and aspects of your journey that really led you to building this community. Why don't we start there?
Okay, amazing. Hi everyone. Hi folks who are watching. Yeah, we are on our phones, so I have no idea how to see comments and all of that. I think they just come up, so we may not be able to respond to any, but we will. So gosh, it's so interesting what that triggers when you talk about the founding story of Revolutionary Woman, because I feel like this is kind of my life story, and I know that that's familiar for so many of us who have been putting ourselves out there into the world. And in some way, shape or form, I've been doing this work for, I guess, really coming up to 20 years now. I had a career before that. I started out my kind of educational path studying social work and business. So I've always had this kind of curiosity about what happens at the margins of life and what happens when we kind of break down the silos and the systems that we've created. And I've always sort of held that as a curiosity. And so I guess the Revolutionary Woman work has been going on for a long time, but under different names, different ways of, you wouldn't necessarily have known it's what Revolutionary Woman, the form that Revolutionary Woman has taken today. But in some way, shape or other, I've kind of almost always found myself on the edge of what's coming next, or kind of just really working at that growth edge of people and systems and society. And I certainly wouldn't have claimed the word revolutionary earlier on in this work. The naming of this work as Revolutionary Woman came about because partially really because I had a very significant experience in my own development, my own personal development journey. And I noticed that I was able to experience life and work with others in a new way. And I went looking for explanations and answers to that because I have an adult development background, and I'm really curious about the way we expand and grow as adults. And I came across an adult development model that explained it for me. And what I took away from that model is that so few of us are fit for purpose at this time on the planet. So few of us are genuinely prepared to lead the kind of change that we need to lead on the planet, to lead the kinds of revolutions that we need. And I want to say that when I use the word revolutionary, I know we'll probably explore this a bit later more, revolutions can happen all over the place, internally, in a relationship, in a family, in a community, in an organization, in a business, and of course, large scale, across continents and the whole planet. So I'm talking about revolution at all of those scales, and they can't be separated. And now I think I'm going off into another area. But what I will say is that it took me a fair amount of time to really start using the word revolutionary and to own it and to claim it as the kind of leadership and way of being and the kind of action that we need at this time on the planet.
Awesome. So I'd love to know, what would you say was, we'll call it, let's say, the inciting incident that really propelled you onto this path of just desiring and wanting to work with women, and with that, was there another moment where you really got to understand that that women were the ones to create change? So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think I'll start with the piece about women creating change, and then we'll see if a moment arises from that, because it's, it's sort of hard for me as I go back along this journey. There are so many defining moments. I've worked largely with women now for close to 20 years exclusively, not so much on purpose to begin with, just really a product of the environments and the organizations I was working with and the places that I was. And the why women piece, that's the question you asked, right? Because my brain's going off. Yeah, why women, and why did I choose to work with women? Well, again, it actually took me a long time to put a stake in the ground and saying, okay, I work with women, because that's also, I guess, fair. I want to say a brave act, but it's not really a brave act. For me, it was more about, okay, let me break it down. When I look at the adult development model and I look at the capacities and the ways of being and acting that are at the highest developmental form, which is the self-transforming mind, without getting into the model that kind of sits behind all of this work, what I know for sure, for certain, is that women are the ones who are poised to make this developmental leap. And the reason we're poised to make this developmental leap is for all the things that we've been kind of told to push down. Our ability to feel, our ability to connect to our whole body for information, our ability to sense make into systems, to collaborate, to work across silos, and just really at the heart of it, without going into kind of all the aspects of that model, recognizing that if our way of being can be magnified and harnessed, it's exactly what we need on the planet at this time to take us forward. So that's kind of why women, and it's in a nutshell, and in a really tiny nutshell. And I'm not saying here that men don't also have these same capacities, or folks who might identify as non-binary or, gender fluid. These capacities belong in all humans. It's simply that women, by nature of our biology, by nature of our makeup, have a little bit of a head start here.
Got it.
Also, there's stuff about the patriarchy, but, we can we can dissect that later, maybe. Yeah.
So what really, I'm really curious as to what got you to connect these threads. Was it just, you seeing women in the margins and their possibilities? I'm trying to connect a little bit of the creation, revolutionary woman, and then your own personal journey and those two intersect.
Yeah, thanks. Let me connect a little bit of those dots. So, and this is worth saying that I've been in the personal development, training, coaching, trying to make sense of life through that lens for a long time. So I've worked with a lot of women over that time, and I was part of a really big women-led organization in New Zealand. Which is really where I learned almost everything I know about creating change and transformation and what it looks like to be in a women-led system And also just going back to the beginnings there, where I talked about my kind of beginning academic career. Before that, I left home at a young age. I went to London, England when I was 17. Started to have these really interesting cultural experiences, which led to a lifelong kind of wanderlust for working around the planet. In my early career, I worked in government and nonprofits and training organizations. I kind of worked across the gambit of different organizational forms. And I noticed that I was always kind of chunking the system up and connecting the dot. Yeah, I can see that, not a recognition, connecting the dots in a system. And observing it through that lens. And when I started, I guess, more formally working with women and started a business, hosting conversations with women and working more as a facilitator, it really started to show me what was possible when we come together in these when we bring different elements of the system together, when we bring big groups of women together who think differently, who act differently, what actually becomes possible when we go through the journey of, I guess, go through the fire of that experience, and then also recognizing, and then, working in various places around the world, and then, like I said earlier, having this experience of noticing this developmental shift in myself from working in these diverse systems of women, and becoming really curious about it. But let me just cut through all of that and kind of cut to the nutshell. Women didn't create the world that we live in right now. Yes, of course we had a part to play in it. Of course we've had a part to play in it. But we did not fundamentally create the systems and structures that dominate our societies. Men did. The patriarchy did. Women's voices and women's ideas and women's skills, the fullness of those have not been involved in creating what we have now. Yes, again, in some ways, but not at its full power. And that has to change. There really is no more time to waste. And I believe that women have some of the capacities that we really need right now on the planet. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the two questions that I completely forgot. Isn't that cool how that happens? You get asked, does it happen to you? You get asked the question and then it's like, yeah. Or is it just me?
No, I don't think it's just you. I definitely expect that too. So going on to that, what would you point to? And I know it's like many moments, but this is what was just coming up as you were speaking. What really inspired you to be in this path of change making? I mean, on one hand, knowing you personally, I kind of feel like it's just your way of being as much as it is mine. It's kind of a sense of how we're wired, but I'm just curious if there was anything else to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful question. I didn't grow up with, sort of an inspirational parent or, like somebody that I was taking these cues from. I think it was definitely, I mean, obviously these things are always a product of a whole lot of different things colliding. But again, to cut through that, there is definitely something intrinsic in me that wants to use my life in this way. And, I've turned away from it many times or gone down different tracks. But if I look back through kind of my body of work in the world, it really has been in service of an inquiry around how do we create a world that works? How do we create interior worlds that work? How do we create relational worlds that work? How do we create systems, structures, organizations that work? Now we can talk about what it means for things to work or not. That's a whole other story. I've got some ideas about that through a feminine lens. Right. But it's been intrinsic, and I've noticed my pattern, and kind of in my younger days when I had jobs, I always ended up not doing what I was hired for. I'd find some other thing that was more interesting to work on, or some, the kind of,
Yeah.
and then and I just had the privilege of getting to work alongside some just unbelievable women in particular over my time. So yeah, there was no kind of come to Jesus moment, if you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I was born this way, to quote, who am I quoting?
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what would you consider to be some of your superpowers?
Ooh. Ooh. My superpowers. I think my superpowers are being able to connect with most humans.
Mm-hmm.
My superpowers are holding space for brilliance to emerge, holding
Mm,
space for what is truly possible to emerge. And often in the play center world, we would call it the BDI system.
yeah.
BDIs, that moment when you see something in someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, often I can see the full potential of a person. And that has gotten me into trouble over the years because sometimes I've got a bigger dream for that person than they have for themselves, and that doesn't
Right.
work out.
Yeah.
That doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But I'd say my superpower is creating containers where folks can observe themselves in a safe space, and can really learn how to bring their whole selves to what they're working with.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, my superpower really is convening, holding space, and bringing together diverse viewpoints and
Mm-hmm.
diverse ways of being in service of creating something amazing.
Mm, amazing. And to follow that thread, so with your superpowers and the tremendous journey you've been on, how have you brought those together to birth this community? Like what or how has that informed what this community is? And maybe you can speak to how you see what you see with this community really being.
I will. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm,
How did it inform? Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag first and say that I kind of started this particular online community accidentally, um, as so many cool things kind of do. So I left New Zealand in 2016. We lived in the States for a year. It was a very, very, very difficult experience for our family. And I also kind of left behind, I guess, my work community in New Zealand, and I knew at that point that I had an inkling and a desire to work more globally. I'd already been working globally, um, but what I'd been reluctant to do, maybe I'll use the word afraid to do, not ready to do yet,
mm-hmm.
was really put a stake in the ground to scaling this work globally for it to really reach as many women as possible. And it was really something to get to that decision, because I've had an incredibly privileged working career where I've been able to kind of hop around these different experiences that kind of inform my body of work. And I've also been reluctant to scale because it means making a commitment, right? It means making a commitment. But really, my experience of going to the States, and this isn't something that I could just found out when I got there, but with everything kind of going wrong, it was really a moment of just full recognition of where we're at as a species, full recognition also of my own mortality and my limited time here on the planet, and also like thinking back through the privilege of all these experiences that I've had and not wishing them to go to waste. And not that I was wasting them, because I was certainly doing good work, but to kind of say to myself, well, what would happen if I played this out? What is the full potential of this work? And what if I was able to kind of start a global tsunami of change, which I often talk about? What could that look like? What could be possible? And so I knew I had to go online, that was kind of obvious to me, especially at that point, because I'd lost my in-person thing. And I was like, okay, that's kind of scary. I'll just start a group. So I started this Facebook group, and I invited 50 people that I know, like, and trust. And I just started going live. And that was the kind of the beginning of this community as you see it now. But what I was actually doing was speaking all of this into existence. You know, as people kind of came, and this community itself has evolved. I think it's been 3 years that I had this community. It's been active and then inactive and active and inactive as I've kind of gone in and out of really deciding, like, what is the shape and form of Revolutionary Woman Global, and what am I really here to do, and what really is this community. And there was another question you asked, which is probably the one you want me to finish on, which is
just talking about the community, like how would you describe this community in the context of maybe maybe in contrast to everything else that is out there, like how would you revolutionary? Because I think that's important.
How would I describe a revolutionary woman? Okay, well, I mean, there's a long description for that, and I actually will be giving that at the end of this month when I do Being Revolutionary, which I haven't announced yet. But for now, what I'll say, I think revolutionary women take many shapes and forms, but at the heart of it, I would describe them as fearless advocates and creators of radical positive change. Fearless advocates and creators of radical positive change. And, you know, they're women who are willing to put themselves at the front lines of creating a world that works. And again, you know, I work with women who literally do lead revolutions, you know, large scale movements. And I also work with women who are working on an inner revolution, so that they can, you know, they can discover what they're here to do. We need all of that. You know, we need all of that. But there's a spark and a quality in someone that I would call a revolutionary woman. You know, one when you meet one, if that makes sense. And this community itself, you know, for anyone who's around Facebook groups and around other Facebook groups, they can be very transactional. They can be very, you know, what's the next thing that's going to be offered to me? What's for sale here? And I'm certainly not putting that down, because I am all for women making a living, and without economic empowerment, there is no empowerment for women. So I'm not in any way, shape or form dissing a woman who is, you know, selling to folks in her group. Of course we are. But this group isn't, I haven't established this community for it to be transactional. This is a responsive and reciprocal community, meaning, you know, if you're in this community and you would like to invite us to be involved in the work you're doing or pay attention to it, then that requires the forming of a relationship. And actually that's one of the reasons why we're actually growing this beyond the Facebook group, because I recognize the huge limitations of Facebook. It's noisy, it's Facebook, like, sorry, Facebook. It's noisy, it's, you know, it's all of those things. It can be, I mean, it's challenging to even have Facebook show you what's going on. So that's why we've created the membership. That's why I'm running the dojo, and that's why, you know, we've got our events coming up and all of those other things, so that we can actually get in and meet each other.
What do you think makes this community so you spoke to it a little bit around this idea of, you know, having reciprocal relationships, and it not being something transactional, but I'm curious, like, what are the other qualities that you would say that really distinguishes this community from so many others that exist, especially in the world of change making and women-led groups?
Oh, that's a great question. And, you know, it's interesting because it's kind of like, I feel like it's a question that's maybe better suited to someone who's not me and someone who's in the community and experiencing the contrast of these other communities, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll answer it from my perspective. Firstly, I genuinely care. And many of the women in this community genuinely care.
Right.
I'm interested in a depth of relationship. There's a depth of relationship available in this community for folks who want it, which may not happen in the group itself. I get that. I think one of the other things that makes this group different is that there are opportunities here. Like, there are real opportunities. For me, this is actually a community. So yes, I began this community. Yes, I lead this community. But it's not the Morna Haist show, you know. And yes, I have stuff to teach, but we all do in this community. So, you know, I genuinely welcome collaboration, people seeking help and support from each other, people staying the distance, which is again another reason why we've kind of created a membership. But I'm going to flip this question back to you, Susheela, as a member of the community. What would you say?
I believe there's like echoing what some of the things you've shared, like there's a genuine sense of care for the visions that want to come forward from the people in this community, that really it is about the impact and what we're here to create first, you know, and I think that's really different. I think, and I'm curious, you know, so being part of the dojo, I also think it's the lens in which you see the world, which is way more holistic, in the truest sense, in terms of like every part of you is welcome, and there is a role for every single part of your expression and being. There's no box to fit in, right? Because I think there are many spaces out there where people are trying to fit people into certain boxes.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real space for, if you're really willing to do it, real exploration, an exploration of your truth in its most absolute sense, and the space to bring that forward into the world. Obviously, I believe it's in alignment with certain values, and we had a little bit of a conversation about that yesterday. But it is in alignment with certain values. So I feel.
Oh, that's something I actually want to touch on, and I appreciate everything you've said. That we're a little over time, and I'm hoping you'll let me continue a wee bit if that's cool. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I watched what time we pressed pause.
So yeah, we're 5 minutes after. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So
8 minutes, but yeah.
Okay, 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Okay, great, sweet. Oh, I've got so much time.
I'm a Capricorn, so
sweet. Well, there's one thing I'll say is that one of the areas I've hesitated in is that I do not want to be a single white female out there preaching change on the planet. It's just not correct, right? It's just not where things are at. And when I really recognized that a wee while ago, maybe a couple of years now ago, I went on an intentional journey of inviting more diversity into this space, not just diversity of culture, but diversity of background, opinion, all of those things. And sought out to really intentionally create a diverse global group, and this group is diverse. I would love it to be more diverse. And what I'll say to folks out there, if you're looking to invite more diversity into your spaces, then you need to invite more diversity into your spaces. It will not happen accidentally. And that is about looking around you and seeing who's around you and saying, well, who's not here? And how can I reach them, and how can I create space for different people here? And that's I think that's another thing that differentiates this community more and more and more, is that commitment, commitment to that. And now I've lost what you asked me, because I just went on a little thing. You probably didn't ask me anything.
You went, no, we, oh, now I lost it.
But okay,
I think I was sharing my feedback about how I see this community being as different than a lot of the other communities out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and let me just talk about the dojo briefly. So, just for folks who don't know, there's this the Revolutionary Woman group that you're in right now, and we have a global membership, which we just launched, which everyone in this community is highly encouraged to join. Because we're going to be funding some really incredible projects around the planet with that membership. Secondly, I run a dojo, Revolutionary Woman Dojo, and again, like using the word dojo, man, that took me a while to actually say, no, I'm going to start a dojo. Like, this is the thing I want. And the dojo is really an expression of all of this coming together. And it really is making the statement, and this is something that I fundamentally believe, and this is at the heart of what I see as being a revolutionary and the kind of action that we need on the planet. We need to stop perpetuating harm and insanity through our actions as agents of change. We need to lead from sanity and wholeness, and the wholeness of our being, and that takes unraveling from the cultures that we've been indoctrinated into in terms of how we work, what success looks like, fixing ourselves, because we're also broken and all that kind of stuff. And what does it actually feel like to lead from a place of wholeness and sanity? And sanity, I'm not necessarily relating to mental health, but the act of not perpetuating more harm in the world. And most of us are doing that unconsciously. Most of us who want to create good work in the world, we're not going out there going, oh, how can I hurt people in the process?
No.
Because often the person we're hurting the most is ourselves, through overwork, burnout, the crazy systems that we've created. It's our job as women at this time to do our own work. And part of the reason why I started the dojo is because we actually need a place to show up and practice what that feels like, and to sort of come back to that place and re-experience it. You know, yeah.
Totally. Perfect. So we're at time. So is there anything you would like to ask or share with the community before we end the conversation?
Thanks, Susheela. Okay, cool. A couple of things. One is I would highly encourage everyone here to join our membership. And what we're doing with our membership is we're hosting monthly global conversations on the future of our planet. And we're going to be beginning with our first one on May the 8th. So that's a heads up. This is like a save the date. And it's really going to be focused on what time is it in our world? What time is it on our planet? What time is it for us? And looking at that through the lens of the diverse global community that we have here and in our membership, because, what time it is in your world isn't necessarily the time it is for someone else in a different country experiencing different things. So join the membership. And when you join our membership, which is currently $55 USD per year, you can also donate more if you want. 50% of our membership profits goes towards our 2030 Global Fund. And the opportunity to support some of the incredible projects in our community, like Green Rainbow Collective in Greece, and the amazing Tara Barnes, who is our community assistant, global community assistant, who is just an incredible woman, and creating an eco-village, a learning village in Greece to connect refugee populations with local populations. And in doing so, really help and support a lot of incredibly vulnerable people. So the opportunity to support projects like that, and and the many other incredible impact projects that we'll be supporting. So there's the membership. We would love folks to join. And then, of course, there's the dojo. And I am going to be opening up spaces in the dojo in May. So stay tuned for that when I do my talk at the end of the month. So I'm going to be doing a talk called Being Revolutionary. If you want to know more about what I've been talking about today and how to expand some of these qualities. And I'll just say one last thing about how I work. So kind of no matter where you're at, typically people who have had a decent amount of, I guess, self-development work do really well in the communities that I lead. But we work at your growth edge. You know, we work at the edges of wherever you're expanding to, and that's just a thrilling and exciting and scary and amazing place to hang out. So if anyone here is a member of the dojo who's watching, then feel free to let folks know what you think about our community. But really, I'll leave it by saying, and I'll pop a link to the membership below. If anyone's curious about having a chat about what we're up to, then send me a direct message. I love to connect and chat. If you're a thought leader, a leader in your country, or an agent of change, then you definitely want to join the membership, because you're going to become connected to women across the planet who are really leading the movements of our time. So,
right.
That's
Perfect.
the pitch part over.
Amazing.
My phone's on an angle now, so I'm like, okay.
And yeah, as someone who's part of the dojo as well, I'm helping co-create the membership, but as someone who's part of the dojo, I can express how absolutely transformative it is, and it's just taken my own understanding of myself and my work in the world to the next level. So highly recommend both. And on that note, thank you so much for all of you who've joined us live. Thank you so much for everyone who's watching, who will be watching the recording. Please share your comments below. Morna's going to also pop the link for the membership. If you'd like to join, we would love to have you as part of our global conversation community. That's what I got. How did I do?
That's what we've got. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Susheela. Oh my God, I finished with a burp and I hadn't. I love it. Okay, bye, everyone. Bye.